Welcome to my channel. This is Bruce the Boss Resurrected, and happy 4th of July and or Independence Day weekend to everyone. Here I am rocking my version of a patriotic red, white, and blue shirt. Yes, we are back-to-back World War champions. And welcome to this edition of Boss TV. So I am making a comeback after YouTube had nuked my previous channel when I was just this shy of 1,000 subscribers and entering into the partnership agreement. And they did so because I was exercising my freedom of speech. No, I was not spewing any hateful rhetoric towards any group or individual, was not encouraging any illegal activities, nor was I encouraging anything that would lead to the harm of any individual, but rather I was questioning the official narrative. Apparently, that is against community guidelines, despite the fact that YouTube CEO won a Freedom of Speech Award, which I had to criticize in my latest video on this new channel. So again, thank you for coming to my new channel here. Please help support my rise and or come back to my previous status. Don't let YouTube win in terms of the freedom of speech war. So subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment on this video. Let's get into it. So we are celebrating, millions of Americans across the country are celebrating this country's independence on this Independence or 4th of July weekend, a lot of which is going to include individuals going to barbecues and or just house parties, or whatever your government allows you to do, depending on where you live. But what are we celebrating? What was the meaning behind Independence Day? A lot of individuals would be actually surprised to realize, truth is, we are celebrating an insurrection, mutiny, treason against the crown, against the British government, United Kingdom, to which the United States, or should I say they weren't the United States at the time, they were the American colonies, rebelled against. I mean, that's how, if I'm not mistaken, the history books may write it in places like Canada, which was still very much loyal to the United Kingdom up until maybe the last 30, 40 years before they got their own full independence as a country, and then how it may be written in the history books currently in the United Kingdom, but correct me if I'm wrong. Now, of course, in the American history book, we will try to, rewrite it or play it as we were rebelling against a tyrannical government and our right to be free. But I asked myself, and I like to ask anyone else, what was so tyrannical about King George III in his reign? And I usually get a lot of crickets, I should say, because I think back wasn't he the king that freed the slaves during the Revolutionary War, or should I say was willing to free any slaves that fought for the crown, which was revolutionary at the time because the United States colonists weren't even offering that. And then he would go on and free all slaves throughout the United Kingdom shortly thereafter by 1805, making it officially outlaw and banned. A whole generation, 60 plus years or 65 years before the United States would go on and do it in their own Revolutionary War. Or should I say Civil War? My mistake? My bad. What else? A lot of people complain about the taxation on the British government. So keep in mind, prior to 1765, the American colonists were not paying that much in terms of, or as many on the left will now say, their fair share of taxes in the British government at the time. Not until the Stamp Act, which the Parliament at the time thought, well, hey, we're providing defense for these American colonists against Native Americans who are probably just retaliating towards land that they stole from the Native Americans. Mind you, keep that into context. But again, Parliament's mindset was, you know what, we're providing military protection against the natives whose land we stole. That's just an objective opinion, objective thought and view on the matter. So if we're providing this military protection, they should contribute a little bit more in the form of taxes. And let's not forget that then King George, with the help of Lord Chatham, if I'm pronouncing his name right, in Parliament, actually repealed that stamp tax, which garnered King George III even more popularity among the American colonists. So he tried at times to try to reel back some of the taxation being levied by Parliament. Now, it is a reasonable request for then British citizens to request more representation in Parliament before a lot of these laws are enacted. But let's not forget that the Boston Tea Party and the riot that took place there as a result of the tea tax, for instance, was an act of insurrection, was an act of rebellion. So I just find it very interesting that we're living in a time where the word insurrection seems to be very, looked at as the most heinous and or evils of acts, when it could be considered the most American and patriotic act that could be ever done. That a true patriot protects its citizens from its government, not the other way around. That people should make their governments afraid of them, not the people afraid of the government. And being willing to put the government and hold them accountable when you feel as though your voice is not being heard. That's just a thought, because again, that is the founding of this great nation. Another little thing that we are celebrating and remembering is a little thing that came out of our Revolutionary War and fight for independence, is a little thing known as the Declaration of Independence, penned by yours truly, Thomas Jefferson, and signed in my birth town of Philadelphia, PA, where they talk about the people's right to hold their government accountable. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and establish a new government. And again, these ends that they're referring to is people's unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're talking about the people's right to not just alter, which we can say in the form of, the voting system, but to abolish that system and create a new one. What does the term abolish really imply? Well, if a government agency has gotten to the point where they are infringing on those inalienable rights, history has always told us that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts all. Do you think a government that has that, or a force agency that has garnered that much power, will willingly just give it up? History has told us, if anything, revolution, more often than not, is the only means of the people gaining their freedom or gaining their rights. And that entails fighting back against a government or an insurrection. What do you know? I mean, unless if I'm wrong, let me know what you think in terms of what he meant there. But I've always interpreted the Second Amendment as not just your right to defend yourself against hunters or natives, hunting animals and or natives, but also to protect one against a government, and they need to do the same thing that the American revolutionaries did against the British. We are celebrating people's right to the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unless if there is a national emergency and or health crisis clause. No, unequivocally, without exception, your pursuit to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People's right to feel as though they are being represented in their government. Having a voice, being heard, not dictated to, and not being adequately represented by the people, not being ruled over. We are celebrating people's right to defend themselves, not against burglars, not just to go hunting, but also in order to protect against a potentially tyrannical government and or a government that loses sight and now becomes the enemy of, again, your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, even if that just includes something as seemingly little as your right to be able to work and make an income, your right to be able to host people at your house, to be able to stay at someone else's house overnight, which, as I recall, at one point in the United Kingdom, that wasn't even allowed. Keep that in mind. you're celebrating and remembering your right to that little thing that we call freedom. So that's my video today. I want to know what your thoughts are, especially as it pertains to King George III and his rule. Was he truly a tyrant? And again, if so, what made him a tyrant? We can talk about stealing the lands of the natives that were here first. That's a whole different thing. What was his act of tyranny towards his own people, though? And I would really love to know your thoughts, and eager to respond to those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you agree with some of my questioning and or line thinking, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel, help me fully resurrect back to my previous status, and or there are some. Looking forward to this next chapter in the YouTube journey, as I will not let that little, I guess you can say, deterrent or bump in the road that was the deletion of all of my work over the last 10.5 months. Like, I'll just soldier on. So thank you so much for watching this video. Have a safe and blessed 4th of July Independence Day weekend. This is Bruce the Boss, resurrected, and I'm out. Peace.